Thank you all for being here. My name is Brett Sklar, and I'm a part of the marketing team here at Criterion HCM. What that really means is you don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from the people that actually know what they're doing. So on that note, welcome and excited to have a lot of people here. We've got some great things that we're going to cover today. As you may know from the invitation, today's goal is to really talk about how Criterion and Procore are integrated. And there's a couple of great things we've got for you during this. Number one is our solutions architect, Steve Tompkins, who is here with us today, is going to just spend a couple of minutes going over at high level, a little bit of an overview of our HCM or human capital management platform. And then we're going to tell you a little bit about who Criterion is as well. Then we're actually very fortunate that we've got a couple of people here with us today, both Stephen Amico from Bailey Construction. And so, Stephen, thank you so much for being here. And then we've got another panelist that should be joining us pretty soon here. And we'll introduce him once he comes into the mix. But Stephen represents the technology side of things, and Stephen will get you in and introduce and talk in here in just a few minutes. And then the other person that is scheduled to join us is from the accounting side. And the goal is, and there he is, there's Justin, just in time for us to talk about Justin. So Stephen and Justin will be joining us talking through their experience with Criterion and how it integrates with Procore. So we're going to give you a high-level overview of Criterion. Then we're going to go through an example of what it looks like for a day in the life of the Criterion platform and step you through a couple of the different capabilities. Then we're going to actually have a conversation with both Stephen and Justin to talk about their experiences. Again, Stephen from an IT perspective, and Justin, who is a part of the accounting department at a large construction firm, steel firm. And then we're going to do our poll, which is something we'd like to do because we know a lot of you came here not just for the content, but for the $50 Amazon gift card, as well as the chance to win either a ticket to go see the Eagles at the Sphere in Las Vegas or a $500 gift card for you and your team, however you would see fit. So we'll have one winner announced about 24 hours after the end of this, and then we will send out those gift cards once everybody has completed those questions at the end in order to get your $50 Amazon gift card. So again, thank you everybody for being here, and we're really excited to kick in and dive in. So you may or may not have heard of HCM or human capital management, but it's a HR platform that combines payroll, HR, and talent engagement. Now, Criterion, we've been one of the fastest growing HCM platforms over the last 1.5 to 2 years, and there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, people actually love working with our platform. Believe it or not, you can actually have a software or a SaaS platform, and not only does it work well, but maybe sometimes there's a company that actually likes to talk to clients and actually likes to help solve challenges or opportunities as they come up. And we pride ourselves, and our scores as far as customer service are through the roof because we actually love our clients, and we think our clients actually love working with us. The second big thing is that, we really focus on a platform that makes it easy to justify the ROI and a better ROI than most others that are out there. The way that we integrate, the way that we do a lot of the work for you so you don't have to do the work, really makes it easy to make a decision about how this is an improved ROI. And then the third big thing is we have built this platform from the ground up as a unified system from day one. And if you've ever been a part of HR platforms that have been amalgamations of acquisitions of a lot of different platforms, you've seen how challenging it can be to work across all those platforms when it should operate as one. And so that's really what our clients love about us. And so we've got, a lot of mid-market companies, companies that are somewhere between 100 and 5,000 employees. But we've also got a large number of enterprise customers that are part of our customer base that we love working with. We've got one of, if not the highest satisfaction score of any HR platform. We've been doing this for about 20 years. We serve at least 10 countries, if not more. We actually have 100% uptime. If you remember a couple of months ago, there was a really big hack. It took out all of these Microsoft systems. It was all over the news. A lot of the other HR platforms went down. Stephen, you probably remember that. You were probably dealing with a lot of things when CrowdSolve kind of made it challenging for a lot of folks. But we never went down, which is different than a lot of the platforms that are out there. And then we've got 30 plus native integrations, which clearly we're going to talk today about, one of our favorites, which is Procore. So before I dive into a lot of stuff about Procore and our integrations and how we, sync the project data, we sync timesheets, and we sync employee data, I thought I would go ahead and turn it over to one of the three people that you really enjoy hearing today, and that is Steve Tompkins. And so, Steve, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen here, and then you can dive in and start introducing people to the Criterion HCM platform.
So I'm going to do a quick, very, very quick overview of the system. We're not going to get in very deep because we're going to really talk about what we do with Procore specifically. There's a lot that we could cover on the program, as you mentioned, HR, payroll, talent, recruiting, scheduling, all those types of things. We don't have enough time to go over all that. So I'm going to talk really very briefly on self-service, which you can see on the screen here. We'll talk a little bit about the employee information, the timesheets, and how that works with Procore. So, of course, being an HCM platform, we have employees in our system here. They get access to an employee self-service and a mobile app which gives them, similar access to what you see in self-service. So they can do things on their employee record. So, of course, the first one is when you hire the employee, whether you're using our recruiting solution or you just hire them, directly into HR. That's one of our touch points into Procore, which is to add that employee into Procore once they are added into our system. And you can have approval workflows on that. So a new hire maybe needs to be approved before it gets in to the system. Once it is saved as approved, then it gets added into Procore. And then the employee might do things in self-service. As an example, they need to update their address, their demographics information, those types of things that we allow the employee to be able to update. So perhaps they need to change their address. They moved, something like that. They can easily update that through self-service or the mobile app. Perhaps there's something on demographics that they need to change in here. Most of this information goes over to Procore. If you're familiar with Procore, not everything that's going to be in an HR system is going to be in Procore because it's not necessary. But of course, things like their name, their contact information, that gets pushed over to Procore. And then we're looking at things also like their job information. So their job title and information like that gets pushed across over into Procore. So just kind of a taste of what you see here in HR. And of course, as the HR user, you might be doing this stuff on your own. So if you're not having your employees update that, sometimes people are out in the field, they don't have a chance to maybe use the mobile device or stuff. You can make those changes yourself here in the system. You'll see a very similar looking screen on the HR administrative side to be able to put in things like address changes and demographics and job changes and all those types of things. And as I mentioned, this stuff all goes across automatically using the Procore API. It gets pushed across into the system. Now, coming back, in fact, let me come back to that in a second. Now, the employees, of course, might be tracking time. So we have the option of the employee to do the time in our system, and I'll show you what a timesheet will look like here. Or they could do the time in Procore. So wherever you want them to do that, you can do that here. If you're using our payroll, of course, our time coming from our system or from Procore can go into our payroll. So that can go across here. So here you'll see an example of that. Now, things like the projects and the other things that are attached to projects can come over from Procore. So you add a new project over there. Perhaps you're using, other things like a sub job, a cost code, location, etc. That information would be entered into Procore and then comes into our system automatically. So you don't have to set it up twice. You can set it up in one place and it gets added to our system. And then the employee, when they're doing their time entry, whether they're entering it in manually, like typing in that they work from 8 to 12, or they're clocking in and selecting a certain, project that they're working on, et cetera, makes it very easy for them to do that within our system. So, clock in like this. And then at the end of the week or the end of the pay period, if you're not weekly, they would submit their time. You'll see that right here. This option is submit time. That would take all of the time entries that are here and it can push that information over to Procore to update that side of it. So you have that project billing information over there, and of course goes into, excuse me, our payroll once it's approved. So somebody's going to look at it. Perhaps it's a project manager, perhaps it's the manager, payroll. Somebody is going to possibly approve that, and then that gets pushed over into there. And as I mentioned, we do have the option of the employee putting their time into Procore, and then we can pull that into our system as well. So they may not be using our time entry, which is totally fine. They want to use it over in Procore. We can pull that information into our system. I did want to kind of show a little bit of the information that goes across into Procore from our system and then vice versa. So let me just switch over to a separate window here. So here you can see the employee, their demographics information, as I showed you a moment ago, address information, and just kind of take a look at that information you see there, position, etc. And you'll notice, job title and things like that. And then when I go over into Procore, if you're familiar with Procore, we've got, here's that employee. So same person, Martin, there's the email address, contact information is there. Keep going down, you'll see things like the job title and other information, the employee ID. So all of that gets updated into the system automatically. If I changed his address or I hired a new person or terminated somebody, it's going to get pushed across and, it'll update the employee information over here. There's no reason to have to re-enter the information. Now, there's possibly, of course, information that's going to be in here that is not in our system. An example would be down here in the permissions. We don't touch the permissions. So if I needed to change something in here and make it, he's an admin of something, I can go ahead and do that. I'm not a Procore expert, so I'm not going to speak on that, but those are things that we don't touch because that's not our system. We do add the employee. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the project information. So here's an example of a project. Again, if you're a Procore user, you're going to understand, project information. You'll see here all the detail that goes into the project. And with the synchronization over to our system, that integration, here's that same project over here. You can see that information would be there. And then if you did use things like the project manager fields like that, that does come across. I didn't have that configured in mine, but it can. So all that information would be there. And then other things as well. Like I mentioned, you may have, sub jobs and cost codes and, things like that. That information could come across as well. So if you're using that in Procore, we can add that in ours and it can even show up on the timesheet if they are doing that. Also, as you're probably aware, on a project, you can assign employees. That would go over to our system in what we call the employee tasks. So you can see, for an example, Martin is assigned a variety of projects that are all, in Procore, and he would have access to these. So if I don't assign him to something, then he wouldn't have access to enter that on a timesheet. So that can be done based off of the setup over in Procore. So, high level overview of how that all works there and
Nice.
how that integration works. And like I said, this is automated. So you're not having to export, import, run processes or something like that to do it. You
Yep.
kind of work where it makes sense and the systems talk to each other to make sure everything is up to date.
Perfect, Steve. That's a perfect overview. Obviously, we're not going into the detail of our HCM platform, but we do want to talk, a little bit about that Procore and Criterion integration. And on that note, we've got some great guests with us today. And so I want to move it over. And Stephen, I'm going to pick on you. So I'll give you a minute there to unmute and warm up your singing voice and all those things. Stephen, please take a second, introduce yourself, tell us about you, and where are you calling in from?
Hey guys, Stephen Amico here. I'm from Seattle, Washington. Yeah, I work IT for Bailey Construction. We use Criterion and Procore as well as a lot of other systems that Criterion also ties into. Um, my job is kind of to help payroll and accounting get things moving if it's not. And so I couldn't really tell you how to use the platform, but I can get working again by kicking it in the right place. Something.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Sometimes, and I work with a lot of technology departments and IT people, and sometimes the no news is good news is kind of the best news of all. From your perspective, and like you said, you're not in the application using it day to day. You're really supporting it and making sure that everything is connected and working. From that perspective, does Criterion and Procore work well together to where it's not creating trouble tickets for you and your team?
Yeah, it's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially recently. When I first started here at Bailey a year ago, there were definitely some more bumps, but I will say the integration has improved. So yeah, it's good to see it heading in the right direction.
Perfect. And then talk about the support you're getting most recently. Like I know you've had a good experience recently with our support team. Tell me about that.
Um, I don't know what you're talking about specifically, but recently support has been good. They help fix.
Perfect. So we pick up the phone or we respond to emails or we respond to other things, and we actually have humans that talk to you versus trying to send you through chatbots.
Yes, that is something that's huge on my side because if users
Okay.
come to me and we can't solve it, and we got to jump to the next person. It totally sucks when you sit in the call queue or something like that forever. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Believe me, I feel that, and I know that, and I know a lot of people that are probably on this call today have dealt with that with other HCM platforms. We keep hearing about layoffs taking place and shrinking, and moving their support system to as much virtual or as much hard to get to as possible. And I feel like we're definitely not only in the opposite direction, but heading even further and further in that opposite direction to actually have people who take care of people. So that's good. Stephen, any other thoughts, as far as the integration, as far as things that you've seen work, any other thoughts on how Procore and Criterion work together?
They work together.
All right. Perfect. Perfect. And again, if you've got questions, we've got some people that are on the Q&A that are going to be handling the questions. And then we've also got some time for Q&A at the very end. So looking forward to having some questions asked. Uh, so we'll turn it over to Justin for a minute. So Justin, yet again, another member of the Gray committee here. And this was not planned or coordinated. So I guess we just all felt very gray today. But, Justin, would love to have you introduce yourself, talk about who you are and what you do and where you're calling in from, and your experience from the accounting perspective of leveraging Criterion.
Thank you, Brett. So my name's Justin LeBranch. I work for Scott Steel Erectors. It's a Canadian-based construction company. We're home base is out of Hamilton, Ontario. Yeah, we started using Criterion, I would say about a year ago. We used Procore. Obviously, we've been using Procore for about 2 years. Yeah, we had a need to fix our previous software, and there was just too much manual data entry. So we needed something more streamlined, something more automated. And yeah, Criterion integrated with Procore, and we spent a decent amount of time implementing everything, but we're at a point where everything's automated. Uh, even I mean, our company's a little bit slower than we'd like it to be, but we still have a couple hundred employees. And yeah, I run weekly payrolls and sometimes 6 to 10 hours.
Yep, gotcha. How often do you need to reach out to the support team at Criterion?
So last couple weeks, there was a patch that went through, and so Connor's my main person that I deal with pretty much routinely. But I went probably 6 months there without dealing with Criterion. But like I said, we've been using Criterion for a year, so we're actually slowly integrating it more and more. So, for
Hmm.
example, the vacation schedule we started using in the past 3 months, that ties into payroll. Yeah, we're just slowly improving things, right? So once we start getting comfortable where we're at, we're gonna implement probably the HR side of things a bit more, which we are
Hmm.
doing. We're adding documents to each employee's profile, but like there's no workflow set up properly, no approval rules and stuff like that. So we're definitely really heavily using the payroll side of things right now. The timesheets are all done through Procore. We have
Hmm.
3 or 4 employees that do data entry, or sorry, not data entry, but like they manually put their timesheets in Criterion. And we have 100 people, 200 people going into Procore timesheets. So we and we're a weekly payroll, so we're right into it. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. That's going to be exciting and challenging. It's good for the employees and challenging for the accounting and HR teams.
It's always been this way, so there's nothing
Yeah,
new.
yeah, and I think that's pretty common in the construction industry, right?
Yeah, with union especially. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, listen, Stephen and Justin, thank you. I think we've got a few questions that we're going to get to towards the end. I do want to hand the microphone back over to you, Steve, so that we can talk through, a couple more things as we're discussing this integration and how things work together. So, this is a very high level diagram of the integration, but Steve, if you don't mind, let's talk through, just the next layer of depth of how things work and how things integrate. And then while we're going over that, again, any questions you have, please send them in. And then at the end, we will do the polling.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, this is a great slide because it kind of shows all the touch points that are possible. Now, obviously, am I muted? No, I'm good.
Yep.
That are possible here. Now, you don't, of course, have to use all of these. As Justin said, you can kind of roll into things if you're not ready to use all the aspects of it. You don't have to, but you can kind of see what we're talking about there, where it starts in the Procore tool, where those things are located, and then you kind of see the directions that things are going, whether it's going from Procore to Criterion, like projects, and then the information like sub jobs, cost codes, cost types, and WBS. That goes one way from Procore into Criterion. We did kind of put a little green there on the ERP. We don't push that information over to the ERP. It's possible that the ERP, whatever they may be using, does have an interface. It's possible that the projects may originate over in the ERP, go to Procore, and go to us. And then depending on the ERP, sometimes we'll kind of bypass Procore because it might be we're reading directly from the ERP. But that integration, it just depends on what makes the best use of those integrations. So if you are, let's say, using an ERP where we can pull the projects, maybe it'd be best to pull directly from the ERP rather than Procore. It just depends on the individual use case there. As we go further down, you'll see employee information, goes both ways, and then the teams/crews goes both ways. So you can have it go back and forth there. And then the options for where the time is entered and how the payroll is processed. So as you can see there, we've kind of switched it up a little bit. Procore would be where the actual hours come from into our payroll, and then the hours that are paid go to the ERP, and then of course the integration that may or may not exist between the ERP and Procore. So shows that kind of direction that goes. And if the client would like to use our timesheets, which of course is their option there, kind of now reverse it again. The actual hours would be in our timesheets using the project and other information from above, going into Procore, the actual hours going over there, and then into the ERP. So again, you can have that flow of data going from our system to Procore, and you'll of course see the actual hours going to budgeted labor hours. If you don't have the ERP, you can do that there. So that is, at a high level how that works. And of course, I can talk about the individual fields like you saw on the employee. We could talk about that stuff that gets updated. The same thing with the timesheets and everything. There's individual fields that if somebody has a question about, does this field get synchronized, we can do that. Now, of course, the other thing is that we update our system. Procore from time to time updates their system. If there is, something new that gets added that we need to integrate, we do work very closely with Procore, and we would get that field added in time for them to release that new thing, whatever it is. I don't know what they might be doing in the future, but let's just pretend there's a new field in the employee, and we need to bring that information over. We can bring that information over into Procore, push it over there, or pull it if there's a new thing in project that we need to bring into our system.
Perfect. Well, thank you. We've got a couple of questions that have come in, and so I thought some of them for Justin, some of them for Stephen. Justin, you mentioned unions and the requirement for the weekly payroll. Is Criterion good from your perspective with regulations and requirements from both union and non-union employee populations?
I don't know about the US. We don't deal with US unions, but Canadian unions, yeah, you have to set up rules behind the scenes. You might have to get into custom reports, stuff like that. But I think pretty much all payroll softwares, for the most part, should be able to track union related requirements, simple tax, stuff like that.
Yep.
Over time, we came up with systems, checks, stuff like that. Exports, there's specific exports I use for a lot of different reporting requirements. You'll get into data grids and stuff like that. That's where you get Criterion support to help you. Anything's possible. In my opinion, I probably save a solid day right now, a day and a half by using Criterion over Sage, and it's specifically over the data entry and the hours and stuff like that.
Is that per week or per month?
That's per week, and it also
Wow.
depends on the jobs. It also depends on what's going on in our company. Like right now, I said we're not as busy, and if there was a really complicated job that came up and it came into Criterion, because we have it so streamlined and automated from a data entry standpoint, it won't affect us as much as it would with Sage. So there's time savings from my perspective.
That's amazing time saving perspective. Like a day and a half a week is it's a lot of time.
Yeah, and obviously the more data entry involved, the more potential for errors, so decreased errors, stuff like that.
Another question that came in, and it's sort of generic, but Stephen and Justin, I'd love your answer, which is the question of, do you have dedicated reps you work with from Criterion? So do you go to the same person every time?
Connor's who replies to me every time. I don't know about anyone else, but yeah, if I send Criterion an email, Connor's the one who replies to me. He's my main contact. I don't know.
Yep. Okay, perfect. Stephen, how about yourself?
I don't think so. We usually deal with either Patrick or I believe Alexi.
Okay.
But yeah, no one dedicated.
Okay. Well, it's pretty cool that you guys know the first names, and it's not just some random person like, that scrolls through, 80 different people, all those different things. So that's great to hear. Another question that came in, Justin, I think this is for you. Do you get good reporting for tax purposes from the Criterion platform, or does it come from Procore, or, where do you get that?
I get into somewhat custom reporting. We actually, I say we're a Canadian-based company, but we have work in Greenland right now. So the withholding tax and stuff like that, I have to separate things specifically. So I use work locations personally as a separating feature. You can get into projects and stuff like that as a separating feature as well. But we have so many checks set up, and there's very specific reports that I prefer in Criterion that I use routinely for multiple different reasons. But yeah, I'm pretty handy with Excel when it comes to certain things too. So exporting things into Excel and making it work for whatever I need, as long as all the data's in the report, I can make it work through Excel. Like that's where I talked about the data grids quickly. I use data grids for a lot of stuff. Yeah, the reporting structure is sufficient for me.
Got it. Good deal. Good deal. All right. Well, I tell you what, and again, just, Stephen and Justin, thank you so much for being a part of this. Steve, as always, you've done a great job of showcasing our platform. We're going to go ahead and dive into the poll, which I think is what many people have been looking for, especially if you want to get that $50 gift card. Or if you want to try to enter for the chance to win the Eagles concert at the Sphere, or a $500 gift card equivalent. So please take a moment. Please fill out the poll. I believe that should be in front of you. And just go ahead and fill it out, and then we'll wrap things up. Steve, can you see the poll?
I can from my side. Yeah, but I can't answer it. Yeah, I see that people answering it.
There we go. Got it. We got some people answering. All right, we'll put that up for another minute. While the poll is still up, I will just go ahead and start wrapping up here. And so, on behalf of the team here at Criterion, we want to thank you very much for being a part of this session. Justin, Stephen, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your day to talk about your experience with Criterion. One of the key points we know as a big differentiator for us is that we are a single unified platform. And while we integrate with partners like Procore, and construction is a very strong industry for us, we know that while people use parts of or all of the Criterion platform, the fact that it's fully unified across all of our systems, HR, talent, and payroll, really brings it together, in a way that I think other people struggle with when it's, put together with, duct tape and baling wire, through acquisitions. So it's a big part of who we are and what we do. Again, thank you again for our guests. Thank you to Steve. Thank you for everyone that took some time out of your day to be a part of this. We're going to go ahead and end the poll, and then within 24 hours, we'll send out your $50 Amazon gift card as a thank you for being here. And we will also announce the big winner of the $500 gift card and or a ticket to see the Eagles at the Sphere in December in Las Vegas. Again, thank you very much. We hope you have a fantastic day. And when you're thinking of HCM and HR platforms, we know you'll be thinking of Criterion. Cheers.